We, now we're
There we
live.
go.
Okay, so now we're live. And actually, hello, everybody. I'm going to get present, be centered and grounded in the moment, and be right here with all of you, but especially Julianne, because, today's topic is important. And I know I say it every time because every topic is important to our recovery journeys, or I wouldn't be here, because adding value to the journey is really what we're all about. And so, today's topic is assertiveness, and more so than just what it is. Although I will say, assertiveness is absolutely a skill. It absolutely means standing up for your personal rights, being able to express your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs in a direct, honest, and appropriate way. And certainly assertiveness is also very respectful, right? It respects your feelings, but also the feelings and beliefs of other people. And it's very much empowering so that you can feel like you can, act in your own best interest. Now, I've put bullet points below, or I will be putting bullet points in the comments below, just so that you can have those highlighted benefits. But I think, what I said there in the second topic is really what resonates for me. And it's that it's honest, it's genuine, it's transparent, it's authentic. It's not what I see or hear when I start working with people, what most people think assertiveness is. And so if we want to broaden it, it's not rigid, it's not blunt, direct to the point, kind of like boundaries, where everybody thinks boundaries are those hard, fast stops that are just going to cut you off, right? Like things don't have to be rigid in our life. And in fact, when we're on a recovery journey, I think the most important thing is to learn how to be assertive with ourselves and others. I think we have to, for a lot of us, we have to learn honesty and transparency, because for a really long time, we've been hiding our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our opinions, our beliefs. We've been masking them, covering them up, shoving them down, putting them on the back burner, or quite honestly, just being deceitful. And I think, it can be a big challenge for us to step into a true space of assertiveness with ourselves and with others when we're on a recovery journey. We also, because we have this conditioned way of being, of saying, acting as, looking like what we think we're supposed to, based on societal norms, based on what we think our partner wants us to be, do, or say, based on what we think the other person would prefer us to, how they would prefer us to be, even if it's not a partner, right? Just in our social circles, like, how can I fit in? Let me morph to whatever, to whatever's going on in this space. Like, how often do we walk in a true, authentic genuineness? And if we're not assertive. We're either passive, maybe we're aggressive, maybe we go overboard, so that we can feel like everybody likes us. I mean, people with social anxiety definitely have an issue with assertiveness, because they're either wallflowers. This was me. I was either a wallflower and said nothing, or I overcompensated, right? With I don't know, rambunctious behavior, or over talking, over sharing. And, that's that compensation. And so that's that passive aggressive. And I always like to use the different analogies, because people, get different things. So, if you're, not in that intuitive mindset, and you're either emotionally or over rational, same thing. So assertiveness is a lot softer than people think. Anyway, hi, Julianne.
Hey.
Just sitting over there nodding away.
Agreeing with everything you're saying.
Well, neither one of us, in fact, I think we've both been on a recovery journey for about the same amount of time, maybe a year or two difference. So, I think we both had to step into, our ability to be assertive at different times of our life for different reasons in our life. And it can be challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I still really struggle with a lot, actually, especially when you mentioned the social anxiety thing. I can relate to that a lot because I have a lot of social anxiety, which a lot of people don't realize, because I'm very friendly and I do in general like people, and I'm very interested in people, and I'm very interested in their stories. But I just have issues with my anxiety, like connecting with people or putting myself out there, or like, did I do too much? Did I do too little? It's like all those things, that roll around in your head in social situations, or just feeling overwhelmed by being around so many people and their energy, or feeling overwhelmed by just having like a one-on-one even with somebody, and you're like put on the spot, and feeling like the spotlight's on you. And so I feel like when it comes to assertiveness, it actually took me a really long time to realize that it wasn't something that's aggressive, because I'm a pretty passive person a lot of the time, but I can also be very blunt. I'm very honest. I'm very upfront. I like to tell it how it is, but I also understand that sometimes you have to do that softly, or sometimes, when I'm trying to assert things that I want or my needs, I'm very passive about it because I don't want to like rock the boat, or I don't want to deal with the other person's reaction and like all that kind of stuff. Because maybe you're not going to get the reaction you want, so being more passive about it and tippy-toeing around things is easier. But then I'll find myself sometimes reacting the opposite way and getting really aggressive is almost like a blow up moment where I'm like, gosh darn it, like I need to assert myself. Like I have to literally insert this into, life right now, and realize that sometimes that's not going to get the reaction that I want either. So when you talk about it being more of like a gentle kind of soft approach, I don't think I even knew that for like a really long time. I thought it was just I thought assertiveness was just, you have to get in there, you have to be blunt about your needs. And, it's like more like a dominance thing, you know what I mean? But really the way you explain it, it's not like that at all. And it seems like you really get the results you want, the less dominant you're trying to be, and like dominating this and controlling, it's like a control thing.
You said something really important. You said, everything that you just said was really important, very real, and definitely relatable, because I know, because it was me. And when you said, maybe I don't want to experience the other person's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So this shows us how important it is that we have so many of the other skill sets for us to even be able to cultivate an effective relationship with assertiveness. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is if we're standing there and the anxiety is brewing because we're going through these mental reels, the loops, the rehearsals, having the premonitions and the presumptions of what somebody else is going to think or say, like, oh my God, they're going to be so mad if I tell them this, because, I can imagine they're already going to say this and that and yada, yada, yada. I'm just not going to say anything because I just really need to avoid that conflict, instead of going to our mind and saying, pause, and one saying, you can't presume to know how somebody else is going to or is thinking or feeling about something. You have to actually inquire and or listen with the right filter. So if you have to be assertive in a situation like that, because you need to be genuine, honest, transparent, open, all the things, right? It's more of a, okay, how do I want to see myself in this situation? right? And I envision this being, a conversation between partners, right? And perhaps something, sticky. Maybe we overspent at the store, or whatever it might be. But we have to say, how do I want to see myself in this situation? Sure, there's a potential. Sure, there's a potential that the recipient of this message may get frustrated, may be bothered. However, it's going to mean more to me if I show up the way I need to show up. And so if I need to be a genuine, open, transparent, honest being in my life, because that's how I want to see myself, then I need to lead with that. I need to lead with that example. So I'm going to, hey, I need to let you know something. This is what I'm thinking, feeling, didn't do, whatever, right? I know we've talked about it in the past, yada, yada. This is just a fact, right? We don't even have to apologize. It's just, this happened. This is this. And then you hear their response and or reaction, because they may be very reactive. But if you're responsive and you're set up and you're ready to be responsive and you're being assertive, you are ready to listen, you can then hear. If they get upset, you want to, one, validate them. You want to be able to say, hey, I totally get it. I totally get it. We've had conversations about this before. So help me understand what you see that I could have maybe done better, because I'm looking for ways to improve. Now it's a totally different ball game, because we've approached it in an assertive way, because there's a reason that you want to tell them. There's a reason that you did what you did. There's a reason that you feel remorse or whatever, But if you go into it being open and willing to have an open conversation, not a closed one where you go and prepared to give all of your excuses and reasons why, that's just operating in the external locus of control, right? And if you follow along, you've heard us talk about the locus of control theory and how it really, affects our lives as well. So if you lead with all of those external reasons why, you can say you did whatever you did, whether it's pick up the bottle and have a drink, or if it's, overspend, if it's use, if it's whatever it is, if you lead with, all of these things happened to me, oh, yada, yada, yada. So I used, and I just wanted to be honest. I want to be honest. Yesterday, I was in a period of post-acute withdrawal. Yesterday, I had put all of my skill sets and tactics down. Yesterday, I wasn't present. I allowed my old conditioned way of being to take over. And I just want to be honest with you about that. This is what was going on for me. This is what happened. And you know what? I just didn't do the deal. So what I want to let you know is that right here, right now, in this moment going forward, which is the only thing that I can do anything about, is step into the way that I would prefer to see myself. I don't even know how anybody can have an argument back. That's an assertive way to just say, hey, I messed up. I don't want to lie. I don't want to hide. I don't want anything. I'm being very assertive. I'm being transparent. I'm giving you my feelings. I'm everything. If you want to be mad, be mad. I get it. Go ahead and be mad, because you can't even take on their anger. They can be angry with you. You don't have any control over that. That's what they get to choose to do. The only thing that you can do is add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph, whatever, from the moment that you're standing in going forward. So if you don't like the way that had to feel, if you don't like the way you see yourself, if you don't like the way that you're being received or seen by others, the only thing that you can do is change it in this moment. Ruminating, wallowing, and languishing in something you did yesterday that you're coming clean about today isn't going to help you. Anyway, that's my sermon for the day.
Well, it's absolutely true though. And then that just causes like more anxiety and more like hiding, and you're not really like asserting yourself the way you need to be effective in your relationship or in your everyday life to be able to continually move forward. You're basically just making yourself take steps back, So I think that's like absolutely important. And I think also sometimes it's really easy to confuse assertiveness and reactivity. I think we always feel like we have to have that emotional reaction to things. And if, I used to have the belief that if I wasn't reacting emotionally to something or someone, then it must mean that I don't care that much. And to show someone that I was being assertive about something, I had to be emotional about it. But if you can actually sit back and, like you're saying, just be transparent, lay it all out, accept the other person's action, and then decide, okay, what steps do I want to take to move forward? It's actually like way, way more productive than constantly having like those emotional reactions that then might elicit another emotional reaction from the person. And then like, you're just going like head to head with emotions, and it's not getting anywhere, and you're not really asserting yourself at all in any way. You're just, having that reactivity. So it's like that locus of control that you're talking about, and it's kind of weird to be really calm when you're like talking to someone about things that are difficult or challenging, or even talking to yourself about things that are difficult or challenging, and having that conversation with yourself. I think it's kind of, it feels weird, but it's really a good thing, because you don't have to fly off the handle just to show you care about something, or you want to change something, or that, you have certain boundaries that you want to assert, and stuff like that. Those are absolutely things that you can do calmly, and it's way more productive.
Absolutely. And you said a lot of tie-ins of a lot of the different skill sets. And I love that, because, it's not about being that emotional being. It's not about being that rational being, right? That reactivity, right? The knee-jerk reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
The art of pause and is an amazing thing, because if we can bring in the art of pause to anything, and then have that be in the name of becoming responsive in all things I do, right? Then we add in utilizing that as a time and space, also with getting into the responsiveness, as to getting into that intuitive being, that intuitive mind, the wise mind for mindfulness-based practice, right? So that intuitive mindset and the responsiveness. And then we go, okay, now I don't have to look at things, or, the external, be pulled out and derailed by something else that's going on, being said, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I get to, which if we really look at that, is when we shift into the stance of a judger.
Yeah.
Right. So if we're arguing back and forth and we're trying to prove ourselves right, or somebody else wrong, or whatever it is, we're in the stance of the judger. And, it's very hard. It's very rigid. It's no, any way you say that, any way you position that, I'm never going to accept it. And I'm going to continue to drill my point into the ground. And so if we look at this, when it comes to recovery from whatever it is for you, we get into that excuse mode or rationalization mode, or, whatever that is. And we're telling them all the reasons why they shouldn't be mad at us, all of these things, right? And then so now we're brought in the should word. And so all this pressure, instead of, one, stepping into the stance of a learner and really looking inside of ourselves first. Always start with you. And, because if you're in a conflict, if you and somebody else aren't in agreement, or if you and everybody at work, like if there's a big colleague thing going on, right? Like, and everybody's getting all heated, nobody's listening. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
listening, because one person wants to be right. One person wants to get noticed. One person wants it done their way, and they digging their heels in to be rigid, versus getting into the stance of a learner, where you can inquire, ask questions, right? Add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph, so that you can have a broader perspective, and truly see other things, even if you don't want to go to that person's other way of thinking. I liken that to religion, right? There are so many different religions, and they're all right. They're all right in their own regard,
Mm-hmm.
for who they're right for. It's not for me to judge what somebody else believes in spiritually. It's not even up to me to judge how somebody defines spirituality in their life. Like, I love that you have it. cool, because I know how important it is to me. I don't need you to define it for me. I don't need you to even tell me what it is. What I honor and respect that. Oh, look, it's alarm day. The tsunami warning, dude, is going on.
Oh, we have those in Pacifica and in San Francisco. Yeah.
So hopefully it'll stay at the far away one and not get right on top of us here. But anyway, I love that. And I love to hear about other people's religions. I love to know what they're about or why they think and feel and believe the way that they do. I think it's interesting. When it gets offensive is when people try to convert, right? That'd be like me telling you, I get it. I get why you have that religion, but let me tell you all the reasons why it's wrong. Right now we're in a stance of a judger and it's different. And so society goes around in a very aggressive stance when it comes to being in the stance of a judger.
Yeah.
In the stance of logic and rationale, and then overreactivity and emotion and emotionally charged. If you just observe yourself driving down the freeway, how often do you judge another driver? Like
all the time.
Tell that person how to drive. Like, who are you to tell them how to drive? Like, did you create and invent driving and all the things? Like, do you know something that it's not up to us? It's their life. It gets to look, feel, be however they want to. So, softer. We need these skill sets, tools, and tactics. We need them in recovery because there's a reason we were numbing out, whether it be shopping, eating, alcohol, illicit drugs, prescription medication, doesn't matter. We've been reliant on something outside of us to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness, whatever it is. And we've given all of these emotional purposes. We've given them all the rationale for why they are important, why we need them, why they serve a purpose in our life when they truly don't. None of them serve a purpose. Now, that's not to say we don't need to spend money. That's not to say we don't need to eat. That's not to say that we have to give up drinking. That's not to say we should never take another prescription medication. Sure, I cannot think of a really good reason for an illicit drug, other than perhaps marijuana for medicinal purposes. But we've got to take all of the purposes away from it, for all intent and purposes, right? Oh God, there's that word. Must be a theme for this. We have to have value. Whatever we do in our life needs to have value. And so assertiveness, again, I can't even say it. It's more about being transparent, open, honest, genuine, concrete in action.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I was listening to this morning, actually, and I was listening to the module about this in Transform, was when it was talking about like conversations between people and like allowing for that assertiveness and the fogging when it comes to like people. That was one thing I found really, really interesting that I think I'm going to actually practice more often, because the reason I found it interesting is like, we were talking about like assertiveness versus like reactivity and like being a judger and all that. And I think the thing I like about that tactic in general is that it allows you to kind of like take a step back from the person while you're engaging in the fogging and saying like, hey, wow, that might be really true for you that you're saying that, or, that could possibly be true. And it's giving you a moment to take yourself away from reacting to the person and from judging what they're saying, and so that you can really, really hear them. And so that was one thing I've been thinking a lot about today, actually.
I think it also takes you away, because I use it a lot myself. It also takes you away from that ingrained necessity to have an instant comment, an instant answer. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about conversations, the way that we've become in all things that we do, get a text message, you got to answer it. Like, people have the hardest time.
Yeah.
Just let their words sit for a minute, and so you actually get to have that time to say, do I even need to respond? Do I need to, what is the value? What is my purpose for feeling that I need to insert my views and opinions here? Did they ask me? Like, start having this internal conversation. Did they even ask me for my opinion? Like, was I invited to a conversation, or was I really just asked to listen?
Yeah, for sure.
Because, there are a lot of fixers out there, and you say, hey, you know what? I wanted to run something past you to have a minute to listen. If somebody says that to you, they just want you to listen. Right. And then, so at the end of that, you can, if they look puzzled, or they say, well, what do you think? I just want to make sure, do you really want my input? Because you asked me to listen. You didn't ask me for my opinion. So I was listening with different ears. Let me make sure I understood you. And now you're going to repeat back to them for your own self, so that you're actually formulating a response that represents you 100%, so that you're only giving them your views, not what you think they should do for them, because they're also not asking you that. And even if they are, is that the role you want to have in somebody's life? What if it goes bad? Like, I don't want to be in that position. Honestly. Like, let me tell you what I would do. This is how I feel about it for me. But we can talk about, you and how you might want to shift more of how I would do it for me, for you. And I know you've heard me talk that way a lot in groups and sessions and all the things, right? Because I don't want it to be on me. I don't want to tell somebody what I think they should do. Who am I?
Yeah. And I actually think that's something I do often, is I insert my opinion into a lot of things when I probably don't really need to, because I can be very blunt and can be very transparent. And so back to like the assertiveness part, like that's something I'm definitely personally working on, is like being assertive about my thoughts, feelings, whatever boundaries, without being aggressive about it, or without being like harmful in the way that I'm doing it. Because I think that's really big too, where sometimes you don't realize, like, that you might be causing someone pain, or, maybe just pointing out something they didn't really need to hear at that point, and you are being really judgmental, and you think you're like asserting an opinion into something, but you're, that's like valuable, but it's not really. And I think it can go the other way too, with just being too passive as well. It's like a fine line and a balance, for sure.
Well, I'm not even dropping a shameless plug here, but I know that you and I haven't spent a lot of time together in Attain or Maintain, which come after Transform. Anyway, we do so much beautiful refinement in Attain, with exactly what we're talking about here, and all of the other skills for that matter. But that refinement, it comes, but we have to have the know-how. We can't refine something we don't know how to do. And so I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you. Because it'll really help. It just continues to help that integration, because we are conditioned beings, right? We have become who we are because of all of our lived experiences. And so, whenever somebody asks me, gosh, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do different? And quite honestly, I am so enthralled with my life today, even on my days where I can't be assertive, or I, fail at being assertive, or, any of the other skill sets, I'm human, right? So it just doesn't. Most days it flows very simply because 9 years conditioned. But let me tell you what, there were a lot of years of conditioned ways of being that, you never know when a trauma response, may happen. And so if you're not, there can be times that you get caught off guard. And there's no perfection. There's no such thing as perfect. It's just the best version I can be right here, right now in this moment. Always and always, and that's, I think, all that we can hope for. And so, the continuing of the refinement is just, it's just rewarding, because it allows us to really start to settle into how we want to see ourselves. We really start to own it. and be it and become it. And I can remember back, it's been years now, but I can remember back the day that my husband said, you just don't get derailed by things anymore. It's like nothing bugs you. Like you're just, and that to me was a huge compliment. Now, I did go through a little bit of internal dialogue, like, wow, is he saying I'm not exuding the right amount of emotion over this situation that's happening right now? Because it was a big deal. There was a big deal that was happening that day. So I did have that conversation. But you know what? It's how I want to see myself.
Yeah.
I want to see myself able to sit in and move through anything that's uncomfortable, anything that's great, whatever. I want to see myself be able to sit in and move through all things living. And if that means I don't lose my cool or crumble, then good. Because losing my cool and crumbling were my alcohol, it was my best friend to my relationship with alcohol. And it definitely kept me in active addiction. And so, because externally I could then have an excuse. Yeah. So, if I can keep myself from being externally driven, externally manipulated, externally put in whatever adjective you want, then I can stay. And I do this, like clearly I'm an animated person, but I'm not, I don't have a flat affect or anything. But, if somebody says or does, we have 5 kids, there's 5 grandchildren, inevitably, they're their own beings. They're their own individuals. They're their own unique beings. And they all have partners and spouses and they are their own unique beings. I don't have to like everything they do. I don't even have to like how they do it. Right. I just get to be happy that they're happy and that they're enjoying and that they're experiencing living the way that they want to. Because if, my life motto is one that I get to offer to everybody else. And this is my life too. It gets to look, feel, be however I want it to. And I love that because I get to offer it to everybody else, which keeps me out of an aggressive, judgmental, rigid, reactive mindset. And it allows me to, be softer, genuine, honest, transparent, live life with integrity. So
I love that.
Not 2 sermons today.
No, I love that, because I think, too, like, I don't think we realize, like, a lot of the time, like, how many of our responses are like really brought on by like triggers, and like you're saying, like, you can move through things easily and you don't have to be, we're talking about like not being like so emotionally affected, but still like being able to care. And just because you're not being emotionally affected or having a reaction, it doesn't mean that, like you can't like be effective in life or tell people your opinions or, make your life the way you want it to. It just means that you're not constantly like held hostage to like your reactions and like your emotions and also like that external manipulation from like people or different things or those different triggers and stuff like that. So I think that's like a really beautiful thing to be able to recognize that and put it into practice. And, like you said, we all get triggered sometimes anyway, no matter how hard we work, it's going to happen, but then it's like the way you pause and respond that's going to really matter, like in the end of the day.
100%. And even when you falter, it doesn't matter because there's no do-overs in life. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, you know what? I allowed myself to emotionally eat ice cream. I said, you know what? Because I always ask myself, why do you want ice cream? Mm-hmm. And it had an emotional purpose. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I'm being honest with myself. And I had it. I ate it. What did I make to go with it? It was great. It was amazing. Bread pudding.
Oh, nice.
I made bread pudding and yeah. and got, homemade ice cream, and it was awesome. And I did. I was in the mood for something comforting, comfort food. And so this is the epitome of not expecting perfection and beating yourself up. It's like I coach people all the time. Like, if there's an emotional purpose for what you're about to do, don't do it. That's in the conditioning process. I'm 9 years into living my lifestyle this way, but I'm also a lot of years into my eating disorder recovery. So a lot of years. So, as long as I have that conversation with myself and I'm like, okay, today you're good. Because think of the 80-20 rule, if 80% of the time I'm golden, cool beans to not be golden 20% of the time. I prefer it to be 90-10, but if I set that expectation, then, I'd rather celebrate being 90-10 versus punish myself because I was only 80-20.
Yeah, I think that's a way more realistic way to look at it.
Yeah. So, again, any day we wake up without a chalk line around our body is a great day. Stand up, celebrate, and say, right here, right now, in this moment going forward, this is how I want to experience living. You may have to do that 3 times a day and change it, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Literally nothing matters except for the moment you're in and everyone going forward. You could if you picked up yesterday, anybody that's listening, if you picked up yesterday, that was yesterday. You survived it. You lived through it. Own it. Move on. There is no sense in wallowing, ruminating, and languishing in that. You can't take it back. You can't undo it. And I know people say, oh, but I did this, that, and the other thing, and I'm embarrassed, or I hurt somebody's feelings. Cool. Those are separate items. Don't attach it to your alcoholism or whatever it is, right? Now you have to go to each individual person and sit down and figure out what amends do you need to make. If it's an amends, maybe it's not. Maybe it's, hey, look, my relationship with alcohol is my business. It's not for you to judge. Yep, you didn't like it, so sure, you got mad at me. I'm sorry that you're having to experience this anger right now. My relationship with alcohol is for me to deal with. Let me take that. Let me be the one that's angry. Let me be the one that's hurt. Let me be the one that's disappointed. Like, it's not for you. It's not for you.
Yeah. And I think as long as like you're taking ownership of it and also not using it in a way where you're like using it as excuses, but you're just saying like, hey, you know what, people mess up sometimes. It happens. Maybe I didn't do my best work in this social situation, where I was super reactive, or I let my trauma come over me, or I didn't to engage in, whatever toxic behavior is a part of what I'm, trying to recover from, whether it's like drinking or eating or whatever, as long as you're like truly trying to move forward and you're really committed to like the idea of yourself that you're building to be that healthier like person, then I think that's totally great and valid, and I think sometimes though people can use it as a little bit of like an excuse, but I think you can also you can see when someone's engaging in that behavior where they're almost like manipulating themselves, into believing like, oh, it's fine, like I can mess up a million times and it's fine, like just keep moving forward, versus folks who really recognize that, okay, you know what, mistakes are okay. Mistakes are human. They happen. But what am I going to learn from this mistake? Or I also truly believe in like the harm reduction method. Like I believe in that 80-20 thing, where it's like, what, you don't have to be so perfect. Like if you attach yourself to that perfect idea, some people can attain that. That is actually possible for some people, but I don't think that's possible for most people. And I don't think it's possible for myself. Like really, and I realized when I stopped beating myself up after that, like when I really started truly living a more like fruitful, healthier life, it was because I just did what was attainable. And it didn't mean it was what was easy or what I was making excuses about. It meant I like just actually set up attainable ideas of how I wanted to live my life, of what I wanted it to look like, of what being healthy looked like. And then I did those things. And every once in a while you backslide and that's okay. You just keep moving forward, at that point, and for me too, like I definitely think like because of my social anxiety, I can relate to that, like in social situations of not always feeling like I did my best work, of feeling like instead of asserting myself, I'm being really reactive, or I'm being too aggressive or really dominant because the old me thought that that was how I needed to get my point across. The me I'm trying to create and the me I want to see today doesn't react that way. But is she going to react that way sometimes? Yes, she is.
Yep,
and she does.
absolutely.
But am I going to get really upset with myself? No, I'm not. Am I just going to make sure that however I relate to that person or have those future conversations about similar things are going to be different? Absolutely. I'm going to think really hard about how do I want that to look differently and what am I actually going to do to make that different, And I think that's like just the important part, is the always moving forward part, and just, yeah.
And I think, there's so much in the recovery world, and I don't want to take away from that because, it's especially not if it's important for somebody, but there's so much focus on amends and always apologizing. And, it really lessens the gravity of those two things in the big situations. And so, when I walk an even less than perfect version of my less than perfect version, I walk generally, usually, my response is more of something like, hey, you know what? It wasn't my intention to come across rigid, rough, aggressive, so it wasn't my intention. I see that it probably came across that way. And I just wanted you to know that it wasn't my intent. Because we don't need to say, sorry, make a big apology. It wasn't my intent. This is how this is what I really felt, however deep you need to go with it. But, because it's about doing that, if we're doing our core non-physical feeling check-in, and we probably, you and I could talk for 100 years, I think.
I know, right?
Get off the screen. If we're doing our core non-physical feeling check-in and we're doing that before we have a conversation with somebody, like we're going to have better luck. And the more conditioned it is, the quicker it can happen. Let me check in with myself. Like, what is my true core non-physical feeling? Am I irritated, agitated, annoyed? Perhaps I don't want to have this conversation right now until I can get that out of that. Like, I really have something I want to talk to you about. My headspace isn't right now, but can we put aside 10 minutes for later? That's way better than, or if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to talk about this. And you just take a big, long, deep breath and you do that core non-physical right here, right now. What is your core non-physical? Irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, anxious, bothered. If you're already bothered, you know what? My headspace isn't right. Can you give me 10 minutes to get it under control? Can we do this later on? Like this, I got a lot right now. That I don't think it's going to be a good fit, good match. And if we're assertive with that, open, honest, genuine, transparent, authentic with that, like my headspace isn't right to meet you where you need me to be. And even if you don't care, I care. I care because I know I'm going to present with something. I'm going to present in a way I don't want to see myself. And I certainly don't want you to have to receive it. Right? It's not how I want you to perceive me. And so if we can learn to actually say it out loud, exactly what I just said, say it out loud. Like, oh no, not right now. Like I'm not going to show up the way I want to show up for this. And create the space, ask for the space. Like, oh, give me 10 minutes. I mean, if it seems like it's urgent, give me 10 minutes. Tell them you got to go to the bathroom. Give me 10 minutes to get my head on right. I'm going to go to the ladies' room. Go do it. Sit down. Do what you got to do. Don't go into that dialogue that's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm so irritated and annoyed. I can't believe they're making me have this conversation right now. If your dialogue goes there, it's not going to, you're just making it worse. You're not doing anything.
It's going to keep working yourself up.
Yeah. But if you say, you know what, I'm irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, bothered, and this is why, this is what's driving it. It has nothing to do with this person or this situation or this topic. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to put it on my shelf. I'm going to come back to it later, and I'm going to go be present. And I'm going to listen with the intention of understanding or hearing what I need to hear or understand in that conversation and keep it completely separate. Anyway, I could go on for hours. Julianne and I could talk for hours. Do you have anything that you wanted to say before we leave this beautiful space?
No, just that, I think it's just, important, like you're saying, to always kind of take inventory of like your emotions and your reactions before you react it. And really that moment of pause is super important. Like, I think it's a big sign of strength to even mid-conversation say to someone, hey, you know what? Like, I am getting really triggered right now, and I am starting to respond in a way that I don't think is going to be like productive. Like, I need a minute, instead of feeling like you have to like immediately respond to that person, you have to immediately have an answer. You have to immediately say how you feel, because you're probably not going to do your best work in that moment, in that conversation, especially if you are trying to be assertive versus being aggressive or versus being passive aggressive or any of those things. And so, I think giving yourself those moments and being real with yourself and the other person, they might not necessarily understand it or receive it, but that's what you need. And it's like also a great moment of assertiveness there where you're saying, hey, this is just what I need right now. And I'm going to take this moment for myself, and then I'm going to be able to respond in a way that's going to be productive, that's going to create more of a dialogue rather than an argument, and all that good stuff.
Right. And I think what's important that you said here, and then we will let you all go. Lead by the example. So, because you said maybe they won't understand, the way that you're doing things. Let them ask. Let them not understand. Let them say, hey, what is this process that you're doing to get prepared? Like, let me get into an assertive stance, or whatever it is that you say to give yourself the space that you need. If they don't understand it, they don't get it, let them ask you, because now, because you're leading by this example of how you want to experience living. Mm-hmm. And how you want others to experience you. And so now they're like, hey, I hear this all the time from my clients. So-and-so asked me, hey, what are you doing differently? You're the same, but I'm noticing that there's something different about you in the way that you're, the way that you're moving through your days. And it gives you that opportunity to say, I'm working on skill sets, or bring them into your world and allow them to, to have the same understanding. Anyway, we have to go. Y'all got to go. Lunch break is over. So without further ado, of course, there's always going to be good information for you down in the comments. You can always watch the replay here on Facebook. If you don't feel like scrolling through, just jump over to the YouTube page and it'll be there as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.